The truth's around here somewhere. Welcome everyone to MailFuzz TV. I am Peter and today I'm going to be talking about The X-Files Season 1 Episode 22. It's called Born Again. Sounds religious, but it isn't in this case. Its reincarnation does factor in, though. I think what's interesting about this episode is that it almost tries to play, not a trick, but it tries to kind of make you think of an earlier episode to sort of subvert where it might be going. I was thinking specifically about the episode. It was like episode 3 or 4. It was the woman who worked at the company who it seemed like might have Carrie-like telekinesis powers, but then it turned out to just be a ghost doing stuff. I feel like this episode kind of tried to hint that maybe we were doing the same thing again, but it was actually going to turn out to be either really being telekinesis, or as it actually turned out to be, even more specific, and it still had to do with a ghost technically, and if you count reincarnation as a ghost, I suppose. So it kind of like mixed the things together a little bit. It did make me wonder as we go through this show, like how many remixes or slightly different versions, or just the ideas evolving into different kinds of approaches. It's curious to think about as we go. But anyway, did I enjoy the episode? I did, and my cats are running around distracting me. You little menaces. But yeah, I did enjoy the episode. I think it's a fun episode. I don't know if I'd necessarily call it a good episode per se, because some of my enjoyment actually came from kind of some stuff that was a bit silly or a bit schlocky. I was almost every time the camera cut to the face of this 8-year-old girl looking evil, I kind of laughed a little bit, but I wasn't having a bad time. I was enjoying the silliness of some of those moments. So the basic start of this episode, the gist of it to get going, is that this 8-year-old girl's found near a police precinct, and a detective played by the actress who plays Janice on Friends takes her into the police station to try and help her find her parents. This is just one of these cases where the actor's so associated with a silly comedy character. Kind of like when Leslie Nielsen shows up in something, it's very hard to take him seriously because you're just expecting him to do something funny at any moment. I kind of felt the same thing with this actress here. What's her name? Maggie Wheeler is the actor's name. I was just kind of expecting her to do something silly or say something stupid just because I associate her so much with another character. What happens here early on is that the little girl's left with another detective, a man, because she's going home. She was finishing her shift when she found the girl, and they hear a crash. She comes running into the room, the little like waiting room or holding room that they had her in where the guy was talking to her, and he has been thrown out the window to his death, and he's landed in a car down below. And it cuts back up to her. And I kind of expect her to go, "Oh my god." I promise that's the last time I'll crack that joke, but I had to do it once. And then, the cold open ends on the blank expressionless girl who's sitting there all evil looking. And I got a good chuckle out of that. And there's a few moments like that sprinkled throughout the episode. I also felt like it got kind of interestingly convoluted at one point. It actually ended up not being that convoluted once it was all revealed and kind of tied together neatly enough. But there was definitely a point where we started pivoting into this crime from 9 years ago, the corrupt police and other stuff going on. I was like, wait, what is this episode? What is all this going on? It did actually all kind of come together, and it did all fit well enough by the end of the episode. But I will say the investigation and talking about this old crime, which ties into who this girl is, or specifically who she is a reincarnated version of, does take away from what I was hoping for early on in the episode, which was more stuff with the girl killing people and being evil and using telekinesis, because she does have telekinesis. I think Mulder at one point in the episode kind of explains that it's like almost like a side effect of resurrection sometimes, is that someone might have increased ESP or telekinetic like abilities, and that's kind of the extent of the explanation we more or less get. But Mulder and Scully are called in because this was a weird death. Like, how did this guy die? Was there someone else in the room? it never feels like it is to the audience. I think I immediately was like, okay, the girl somehow did this with abilities, and we can dive into that. Of course, Mulder, as he is wanting to do, always jumps straight to the extreme and very quickly starts saying things like, oh, telekinetic abilities, she must have done this with her mind. And to be fair, he has more reasons to think that this time than he usually does. Because he is right. How did this fully grown man get thrown out of a window with sheer force and strength when he was alone in a room with an 8-year-old girl? It actually does lend itself to speculation that something like that has went on. But this is where I actually started getting flashbacks to the that earlier episode with the woman that might have been telekinesis but turned out to be the ghost. Because not only do we get talk of her being telekinetic, and it reminded me of Mulder jumping to those conclusions in that episode, but it also very quickly starts talking about her seeing a ghost, because she describes a man who was there that wasn't there, but they very quickly discover that this is actually a dead policeman who's been dead for 9 years, and his photo was on the wall, and they say, hey, like, the guy she's saying is dead, so she must have seen a ghost. In fact, this was one of the funnier kind of over the top, like, ad break kind of like sort of, cliffhangers where I think Janice from Friends says, the girl saw a ghost, and it ends in this photograph of the guy in this folder, and it's just kind of like a really cheesy TV cliffhanger. Speaking of cheesy moments, actually, just to get this one out of the way, is that after they've talked to the girl for the first time, and they've taken her home to her mother, and we learn a bit more about her home life, the dad's not in the picture anymore, they're divorced, and so on and so on, and they've been talking to the mother about how she is, and the mother says, hey, my daughter creeps me out, I can't talk to her, she's scared to go in the water, which is actually kind of an important detail for the backstory that we find out later. But she's clearly freaked out by her daughter. She's clearly scared of her, or doesn't know how to connect to her at the very least. And there's a moment at the end of this section where they're outside, Mulder and Scully are leaving, and they're saying goodbye to the mother, they're asking her about stuff. Mulder does this sort of slow turn and looks up at the girl in the window, because she's standing up at the window listening to the conversation. And the way Mulder turns and looks up, dead terrified, or I feel like the performance here is really funny to me, because I laughed out loud in this moment because it felt so over the top and cheesy, and I think it was just a simple case of like the direction for his performance is wrong, whether or not it's on David Duchovny for overdoing it, or it's the director who said, oh no, you're terrified and you think she's scary, so you're going to be really intense the way you turn around. If he just turned around kind of like, oh, she's up there looking at us, I'm kind of curious about that, it would have been fine. But he turns and looks up like he's looking up at Reagan from The Exorcist or something. Like he's like he's so dead serious in the moment. And we're not really at that point in the episode yet where he should be feeling that strongly about it. But I did have a good chuckle at it though. This is the thing, as much as I'm kind of making fun of a couple of moments in this episode, I want to make it clear that I was always having fun with the silly moments in this one. I found this one very entertaining. I thought the pace was quite good, and that it kept shaking things up and doing something else fun. Whether or not it was the way it was intended in terms of how I took it, I was always entertained by something in a consistent pace throughout the episode. So, compliments for that. Before we get to the next victim, I guess we have to explain the backstory. Well, actually, I'll explain first. Mulder goes to see the girl's therapist because, like I mentioned, the mother was saying that she's already kind of troubled. So he goes to see her therapist, who does not like the suggestion that there's unexplained phenomena about the girl, and doesn't like the idea of using hypnosis to try and bring out secrets or a past life, which is obviously what Mulder wants to do. Like, he's dead serious about this. But it does reveal some interesting little details, that she keeps destroying dolls in the same way. She keeps taking off an arm and gouging an eye out. Like, she keeps damaging the dolls that she's left with in the exact same way, which also is a tease to the backstory, which we kind of start to pick at as Mulder and Scully go and talk to the partner of the guy who died, and or the ex-partner at least. Anyway, it would be too convoluted to try and actually go through the sequence of events as they happen in the episode, so I'll just sum up what is discovered as we go on here, which is there was 4 cops in whatever year it would have been, 9 years ago, right? So the girl's 8. The idea is that the girl is the reincarnated of this dead policeman, the one she described at the police station, the one she said she saw. This guy's been dead for 9 years, and he was killed. Officially, the record says that he was killed by the triads because the police had made a big bust, and the triads wanted revenge and killed him in this way. And that's like their MO is the cutting off the arm and the gouging of the eye, seemingly. What we find out is that that's not really what happened. It was 3 other corrupt policemen who did this to him because they had taken money from this bust, which they were going to split up a decade later when everything died down, and he didn't want to do it. He was being, quote unquote, a goody two shoes or whatever, and they seem like the one really bad guy says they wanted to scare him and it went too far, but whether or not you want to believe that, it doesn't really matter at this point, to be honest. So the guy who went through the window was one of these 4 cops, right? So the one guy, the first of the 4 cops was the guy that died 9 years ago. The one that died at the start of the episode was the second of those 4 cops. The 2 remaining cops, one is a guy that Mulder and Scully go in and question, and he kind of dodges some questions. He's kind of clearly hiding something, and that prompts him to go see man number 4, who is no longer a policeman, but he was 9 years ago. He's an insurance salesman now, and he's like, no, you won't go and take that money. We're going to wait for the amount of time we said, and that sets up that he's the only other guy left, other than the detective was spoken to. And it's this ex-policeman who's the next victim. He gets a bus to wherever. I think he's actually going to go get the money out of the safety deposit box or whatever, but he gets out a bus, and the telekinesis kicks in, and we see his scarf like float up into the door of the bus, and it's the middle door of the bus. So when the bus starts moving, he starts getting dragged alongside it. And I was thinking, wouldn't the bus driver just hear him and stop? But that is what happens, except the telekinesis pushes down the pedal, and I was like, okay, fair enough. So he gets dragged until he dies, and at the end of the scene, because we've not seen the little girl throughout this whole scene, but at the very end of the scene, the camera moves up to the window, and would you believe it, the evil little girl is sitting there just with this blank expression on her face, and that made me chuckle as well. I again, in a way that I enjoyed. I was having fun with the silliness of these moments. Because some episodes of the show have been very good at being good, genuine horror, and then some, have these sort of more goofier, like 90s TV moments, and I think this fell more into that category, but in an entertaining way. So that leaves just the one guy, right? That's, 2 of the 3 that were still alive, who clearly this reincarnation of the dead cop wants revenge on. He's killed 2 of them at this point. Mulder's beating the drum that this is reincarnation. Scully doesn't really want to believe it. They actually try and do some hypnosis with the girl, and she does say at one point she's 24, which would, indicate the previous life. And then it all kind of goes away. The mother doesn't want to do it anymore. The therapist doesn't want to do it anymore. And Mulder's really pissed. And of course, Mulder's very single-sighted, right? He always wants to get the answers for the unexplained at almost the expense of anything else around him. And I really like this scene, actually, because Scully kind of puts him in his place. Like, because he gets really kind of pissy about it. And he's like, Scully, with all this evidence, how could you not believe? You have to believe. And Scully's like, look, even if we convince them to do the hypnosis again, and we get the exact answers you want, we get everything that you could ever dream of from this hypnosis session, we get proof, at least to us, that she is a reincarnation of this guy, that she's got telekinesis, that she's doing all this stuff. We can't do anything with it. We're never ever going to actually convict anyone in court. We're never going to actually accomplish anything beyond that. So what was it good for? Absolutely nothing. Sorry, it popped in my head. So it's all valid points, all very valid points. Obviously, Mulder wants the answers, but like, what are they really instantly going to do with it? The remaining guy kind of goes on the run, and one of the things that was introduced along with him earlier on when Mulder and Scully went to investigate him and talk to him was that he has a wife, and it turns out that this wife is actually the wife of the original dead cop who remarried this guy after his death. Obviously, the reincarnation of Charlie Cop is very conflicted, and probably especially wants revenge on this guy because he's married his wife. You know, the big climax of the episode is that the little girl comes to their house, and it's right when this guy is trying to run away. He's trying to tell his wife to pack a bag, and she shuts all the curtains, locks the wife in a room, and wants to kill him. And we get like, you know, things flying over at him. We see telekinesis moving the I think it's the cable for the electric fish tank, which is what he was drowned in. We find out, like, the actual cause of death. You know, everything else that happened to him probably happened after he was killed, but he died by being drowned in his own fish tank, which they reveal actually because in the videotape of the hypnosis, there's like a bit of static at one point where it jumps ahead a second, and Mulder has an expert go through it and like deconstruct it, and then we get this image of what is the little like deep sea diver toy at the bottom of the fish tank, which makes Mulder realize that this is where he died, which is kind of silly. I kind of love it, but it's kind of silly. So yeah, part of me was going to critique that Scully kind of misses a lot of this telekinesis, but to be fair, she comes down with the wife, she gets the wife out of the room, and then she does witness along with the wife all of the electricity coming on and the room lighting up. So she does see a fair share of spooky shit towards the end of the episode. So she can't deny that something was going on for sure. Basically, the wife finds out the cop, her current husband, starts crying in the middle of the room and starts confessing that he had something to do with the previous guy's death. And the wife's obviously upset to hear this, but still asks the girl to stop what she's doing, to stop hurting him. Which she does. It's like you know, the reincarnated guy gets closure, because the final scenes of the episode are Mulder. He's a little upset because he really wants to do more hypnosis with the girl, but the mum and that don't want her to. But she seems to have gotten over her fear of water. She seems to be acting like a normal girl now. The suggestion clearly being that now that Charlie, the dead cop's finished his unfinished business, he's now going to let the girl just have her life and, you know, live her life as she wants now. He has no reason to hang around. Whether or not he's a ghost inside, or if you look at it more of a reincarnation where the previous personality is now just fading away because, again, the unfinished business is no longer unfinished. So yeah, that's like a fun little quote at the end. I do love Mulder being a little pissed, like, oh, we solved all this. The guy, you know, the one cop who was left turned himself in for his crimes. He's facing the consequences of his actions. The little girl's now normal and gets to live a normal life. And Mulder's like, but I really wanted to prove that there was telekinesis and reincarnation. Why can't I have what I want? I'm being a little facetious. Obviously, he's not that unreasonable, but he does look a little bit hurt by it. He wants to do more spooky poking around to see what he can prove, as he always does. And rightfully, the mother's like, "And no, my daughter seems fine now. Go away, leave me alone. Thank you." I think it's a fun episode that moves at a brisk pace. I felt like it kept bringing up new details or new twists and swerves that did make you feel a little bit convoluted at times, but it was always kind of entertaining. And, you know, then you get a new murder with the girl being creepy and doing the evil eyes, and I think it kept a really good pace of being fun, that I was always engaged with the episode, regardless of the silliness that parts of it kind of had inherently. Plus, you know, like, this show has become very much oh, look at this guest star from the 90s that I recognize. And we've had another one this episode with the actress from Friends, doing a very different role than normal. She doesn't really do a whole lot in the episode, really. She just kind of comes into the room every so often with a file and says, "Hey, I found something about the case," and tells Mulder and Scully something. And that's basically it. There's not really much more to her character than that. But hey, I guess part of me almost wanted the evil girl to just go on killing. But it's not even the first evil girl episode we've had this season. We had the clones, didn't we? We had the pair of evil girls before. And that also had a notable 90s guest star in that episode, from Frasier. All the sitcom guest stars. So I'm just looking forward to who we see next time on the show. It seems to be this treasure trove of here's someone else I recognize. Here's someone from The Wire. Here's someone from Twin Peaks. Not counting David Duchovny, who obviously was also in Twin Peaks. But you know, it's fun to spot the faces coming up, given that I've not seen this show before. Next episode is called Roland. So, guy's name. Here's the description on IMDb. When scientists at an aeronautics lab die under mysterious circumstances, the agents suspect a mentally challenged janitor may be the culprit. We'll see how... the reason why I'm going, is because my immediate response to this is, like, a little concern at how a 90s show is going to handle this topic and this type of character. It might be great. It might be very ahead of its time. I have no idea. But we'll find out next week. That's this week's X-Files. Thank you very much for joining me. Of course, you can support all the content by hitting the like button. That's the free thing to do. So please hit the button. It's easy. Hit it. Right now, hit it. Use your telekinesis and hit the button. But you can also support us over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV and get some bonuses. All the movie shows have bonus episodes or things like that associated with them over there. For TV stuff specifically, I've been reviewing Columbo once a month as a Patreon exclusive. So if that sounds interesting, please do help support all the show and get some bonuses. But that is me, so thank you once again for watching or listening. I always appreciate it. Keep watching TV. Have you got any vanilla?